I'm Bob Black, name and emails on the board. I've got more of this wood, so if you're interested, price is right. I'm up in Sugar Hill. Some of it will be in the raffle later. I'm probably the most experienced turner in the room. I started in 1957, and I'm as old as Jack, too. That doesn't mean I'm a good turner. It was 40 years of worrying out the occasional piece with a scraper on a Sears lathe for something on a furniture project. I've actually been turning since the late 90s. You can maybe think in terms of being a little skeptical about what you read about wood turning. Most of the magazines, including American Wood Turner, they're reader written. I can think of 2 cases on sharpening, and one several years ago, one very recently. There was they just completely ignored some major facet of the question, or had significant errors in there. So have a skeptical eye. Do the same thing with demonstrators. We had Frank Bowers at Chattahoochee recently. Frank got to check in. He has done 800 classes at Highland Woodworking. Frank has turned some. He's been at it a while. I don't know how many years. I've probably got him in years, but experience, I'm completely a neophyte compared to Frank. Somebody like that you can listen to. When I tell you I've been turning on and off for a few years, you want to be a little skeptical of what I tell you. Let's see. Really, what I had in mind for this is non-precious wood turning. This is the only measuring device I have with me tonight. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you need to be precise. I'm building cabinets right now. When I'm getting out face frames, I'm not running them all together. But if I'm going through the jointer and the planer and going for a 3/4 face, a thickness, one of my 2-dial calipers is in use to see I'm within 2 or 3 thousandths of 750, because the next batch I need them to be the same thickness. So yes, there are reasons to be very precise. Also in turning, you're building a chair. You've decided you're going to use 5/8 tenons on your rungs going into your legs. You bore the 5/8 hole. First, you need to pick a bit and stay with it, because drill bits are not always exact matches. Then you need to drill a test hole and make your first test tenon to fit the hole that was bored with, and then measure it. If it's 628, you start working to 628 thousandths instead of 625. You don't have to be dead on, but there's a case you don't want it too loose, you don't want it too tight, you need to be right on the money. But that's not what we're going to do tonight. No measurements. Going to do 2 things tonight. I want to turn a mushroom, and we'll talk about why in a minute. These are all out of a really gnarly limb that came down in the backyard of your oak. This one, you see, it's kind of thick-legged. You can see the fault that goes through it. One thing about this sort of thing, it's not terribly dangerous. We'll let one of these come off the lathe at full speed, and you can see what happens.
Don't bother.
Is that where you want it, Dan?
Yeah, that should be showing on both.
Okay. Here's another one. Now these are turned You start like a goblet. The base goes to the tailstock. Can you turn them around? Sure. If you turn them around, you get a lot smoother transition because, see, I don't think mushrooms grow like flagpoles perfectly perpendicular. So you got to tilt them a little. You'll notice the top is tilted from the bottom. Of course, on this one, it's just warped all over the place. So goblet bases, you need to hollow them a little so they don't crack. But again, this one was turned with the top first, so you get this nasty transition. Okay.
That hollow in the bottom keeps it from cracking, Bob? That hollow in the bottom keeps it from cracking?
Somewhat. If basically you've got differential shrinkage in wood, radial and tangential. Longitudinal is so small you can ignore it. And if you've got a cylinder, the outside dries faster and it wants to shrink, so it's going to crack somewhere. If you've got a goblet shape, whether it's the base or the top, as it shrinks, you ever rough turn bowls where you had the pith near the top, and you know the top of the bowl gets the rooftop shape? It's shrinking. If you've got a thin wall vessel that's circular, it can just pull in without separating. Follow? That doesn't come with any guarantees, but where I first got into this, Dave Berger, I had it in one of his classes at John Campbell, and he had us do a goblet out of live oak that he cut the weekend before he came. He lives in Florida. He had cut it the weekend before he came to North Carolina at John Campbell. And I turned this lovely little goblet. The stem wasn't nearly as thin as Jack's, but I was proud of it. And he gave us this spiel, and I got the goblet nice and thin and pretty consistent. And I thought I had done enough on the base. And again, it was just dead green. Within 2 weeks after I got home, on the base, it had opened up. The upper portion was just fine, and the little thing wasn't that tall, so it works. Okay, I'm going to turn a mushroom, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Okay. Warm up. I first heard about this from Jim Talley. Jim's a turner over in Athens. He used to be president of Chattahoochee. He used to do a lot of shows. I think he got rich and retired from that. He is a retired high school math teacher. Interesting guy. And Jim advocated you ought to start with a warm-up piece. Now you think about it, you know, we're the picture of health in here, and you know, and we're all in real good shape. So we never warm up, or rarely do we do that. You go to the symphony, you hear all the sounds as they get started. You go to a football team, the team's out on the field warming up before the game. Track, you know, they're stretching or what have you. So why don't you warm up before you start turning? I've got 2 bowl gouges and 2 spindle gouges, and that's probably, I've got a cut-off tool and a skew that I might use. The gauge that's about the minimum diameter that my number 2 jaws will clamp, and this very accurate arrowhead shows the maximum they'll clamp. And I'm just looking in a hurry. I'm not trying to be very precise. Now, if my eye was good enough, and at home I'll often not bother with this, but it sure as the devil if I try that tonight, I'm going to turn the tenon too small to go in my chuck here. So I brought my gauge. But at any rate, bowl gouges, spindle gouges, and let's see if I can. Oh, okay. Let me ask you this. How many of you guys in the room, or you folks, think you will develop some turning skills tonight by being here? No, you won't. I'm the only guy in the room that's going to develop turning skills because I'm going to be the one standing here making chips. You guys will maybe learn technique. You'll get some ideas. I hope you'll be entertained. You got out of the house and maybe you had to babysit the grandkids. I don't know. All of those are legitimate reasons. But the point is, and I think this goes back to Rudy Osalnik, the only way to learn, you can learn some techniques, but ideas, shapes, but until you stand in front of the lathe and make chips, because it's a lot of muscle memory in this. How does it feel? Oh, it made that noise. What does that mean? And you don't get that out of videos or listening to me, or so. You have got to stand in front of the lathe and make some chips. Now, having said that, and probably offended some folks, let me back up. If you're here to be entertained or just watch somebody do something that you might want to do next year, that's fine. Your $50 is just as good as mine as being a member of Gwinnett. But if you want to learn to turn, you got to turn. Let's see. Okay. That's pretty much all my philosophy. Okay. You're going to learn some new safety terminology when we get to the bowl shape thing. We'll wait on that. This will give you 2 or 3 techniques, and I blow up about 1/3 of them. I hollow out the bottom and then I come through from the outside. Do I try to recover it? Of course not. Okay, we're down to nothing. We turn it on, or did I turn it off? There we go. I like the little guy. What?
What kind of speed are you doing?
What kind of speed? I don't know. I'm going pretty slow. I'll come back to that question when we start with the bowl shapes. This is a little wobbly. I'm seeing ghosts here. Since I'm in front of a monitor and a crowd, I don't want to fling it all the way to the back of the room if I got too much bark under a chuck jaw. So I'm fairly slow here. And I'm just going to flatten it off. And it's hard to do, but you can practice. As you know, if you're doing bowls, you always want to leave it high, not low in the final cut. And you can practice getting that little gizmo out of the middle. Now I want to come right on the edge here. Now that I'm in there, it'll ride just fine. This is the base of the mushroom. Except in being in front of all you guys, there's no pressure to make a beautiful piece here. Be better if I got this. This is cherry, and my neighbor cut it yesterday. Oh, it works better that way, doesn't it? Thank you. Okay, that's a bowl, hollowing the inside of a bowl cut. I'm just biting on that bark. It hasn't turned a ton into anything. But I believe when this stuff is wobbling around, an out-around piece like this is, whoops, it's hitting. Fast is good. So now I'm going to, that was a bowl gouge. I could use it here, but I'm going to switch. I want to start right here because I've got a flat bottom now. By the time I get it turned, it'll probably warp and not be flat. But I don't care. But I'm going to try to pick up that edge and not let the tool skate. And I usually get it, but not always. At that point, I'd have remembered to put the mask down. Now, this is kind of practice for curves. This is usually when I cut through these. I'm not through it yet, but I can't get it any flatter. I think it's cool to kind of undercut the cap. As I said, mushrooms don't grow straight up, so we got to cock it over. And we go through this laborious design process of how much can I pull out of there and still keep it in the chuck. And often you get them where the base will hit the tool rest real easy. But again, if I blow it up, so what? I don't know what it'll take here. Normally I can do these in less than 10 minutes, even getting my coffee situated and all of that. And the tool rest is good. There we go. You don't want to get the stem too thin because you can see the base is whipping around now. So I'm going to come in and try to get a nice start on this corner, which is not round. Now if you want to do this, I did myself a favor. I got a longer blank. Usually I have them too small. I mean, it's already chipped out. So what? And usually I get cheap and try to cut these short, and you don't have enough room to get in here, but I got plenty of, I'm well off the chuck here. And you can go online and figure out what mushrooms look like, or just use your own imagination. I think I'm chasing, I thought I had a scratch in there, but I think it's color. And it really doesn't matter because it helps to keep your tool out of the way. Oh, there it is. Got lucky. I picked up a skew to get rid of this. Not too exciting when it comes off. Doesn't weigh anything. Not a real good cut across the top, but
On the mushrooms, have you done any finishing on those as far as like lacquer or anything on them, or you just keep it natural?
usually just natural. The question was, have I done any finishing on the mushrooms? I tell you what, if you can get crepe myrtle about that big and turn it quick, because that stuff will open up one crack in about 3 days if you cut it in lengths like this. Beautiful, no grain, creamy wood, almost white. You can get smooth cuts on that, and probably the simplest thing, because again, these are not something you're going to rub out and bring to a high polish or not. Probably just oil, Minwax, or whatever that type thing you like. I think Jim Talley wasn't, I don't think he finished his, and he was selling them 10 years ago for $2 or $3 a piece. Just somebody come by the booth and, oh, this is wonderful, but I don't have $400 for that vase, but I'll spring for $3 for a mushroom because they're cute. You know, that's back in those days, that was a cup of coffee for both Jim and Phyllis. So, but no, generally I consider them practice pieces, turn them, and like the little points on the top, you could hit that on a sander and make it go away in a heartbeat, but nothing wrong with doing it, just I don't bother.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. I appreciate you folks.